Okay, welcome to the operating system class. So in today's topic, we will be discussing about IPC, inter-process communication. So as far as inter-process communication is concerned, it is going to take up with two buzzwords. The first buzzword will be a independent and second one will be the cooperating. So when we are going to call it as an independent, that means it is a standalone. It is standalone. That means there is only one thread, there is only one processor, and it is a uniprocessor. So one process is going to be executed by a CPU at a time, and it doesn't is not dependent on any other cooperating processes. So you say it is an independent event. So the same you are going to give a definition in an opposite way, that it is cooperating process. So when we are going to say it is a cooperating process, obviously it is purely dependent on all the operating system resources. And second thing, it needs some data, it needs some processes, it needs some content which is used by the multiple processes, and all the processes needs the same cycles, all the processes needs the same memory locations, etc. So at that juncture we are going to say it is a cooperating process. So why do we need cooperating process? The first thing you can see, it is information sharing. First thing you can see, it is information sharing. So same common element can be used by multiple processors. For example, if I'm going to say track my train or spot my train, so multiple users, they are going to look into the train app, the railway app, and they are going to find where the train is. That means the same information is geographically spread across the different locations in the people where people can use it. So obviously information is going to be shared at that time. So multiple access can be done. So people are going to get the same shared data at any location they are. Second one, it is going to have a good computational speed. So when the data is going to be between multiple processes, so operating system is so flexible that it is so active that it executes bulk threads at a time, bulk processes at the time. So speeding of a computation will happen. That is also which is an advantage in dual core, quad core, or oct core processors. Third thing, it is going to affect the structured programming. Third thing, it is going to affect the third thing, it affects the structured programming. That is nothing but modularity. That is nothing but modularity. When we are going to say it is modularity, it applies top-down approach, nor it is going to apply a bottom-up approach. That means the first main module is concerned. After the main module is done, later on only the sub-modules are built. Then you are going to call that one as top-down approach. But if we are going to call it as a bottom-up approach, what is happening is, first of all, sub-modules are going to be done, and finally a main module is going to be done. So that is where it's a reverse engineering aspect we call here as modularity. Next one will be the convenience as the ease of work. So when we are going to say it is convenience, so as resources are going to be allocated based on the availability of the resource, the required process request is going to be processed. So cooperating processes, now there are two models in this interprocess communication. One we are going to call it as shared memory, another we are going to call it as message passing. One we are going to call it as shared memory, another we are going to call it as message passing. So here in this example, the communication models are going to be reflected here. So I have process A, then I have process B, and you can observe the operating system is going to live here. The operating system is going to live in the kernel, and this is what you are going to say the user space. So in this user space, people are going to activate their processes, activate their programs, and here you can see the message queue option is going to be there. Here you can see the message queue is going to be there. So once a message queue is going to be there, now processes, they are deploying their content. Processes, they are deploying their resources at a juncture, at a data event. So that is where a message queue is going to be there. So last class, we were mentioning every process is having PCB, processor control block. Processor control block will contains the allocation of memory. That is, one, we call it as code segment alias text segment. Two, we call it as data segment. Three, we call it as heap segment. Four, we call it as the stack segment. So a process has to be executed, then it is going to do it via stack. Process has index locations, process has memory locations, then it is going to put it in heap. Process is having 10, 20, 30, 40, some data items, some variable items, then they are going to be placed in code segment. So the thing what we are mentioning, that is data part, that data part is going to be put in this message queue. That data part is going to be put in this message queue. So processes, they are going to have a message queue and they are having some set of memory locations, and in that set of memory locations, one after the other, they are going to execute it. So that is where this message queue is going to come into picture. The second thing was we are going to have a shared memory concept. So when there is public variables, then those public variables, they are going to be put in this shared memory. The public variables what we are going to put, those public variables, they are going to be written in this shared memory. So process A and process B, both of them, they can use simultaneously the shared memory content. So when we share some Google Drive, something else, that means we are putting some data in a Google Drive and we are going to share to you. That means multiple users, they can input to this at the same location at the same time. That means data, whatever it is there, that data is going to be shared with multiple process. So that is where this shared memory is going to take place. So in shared memory, we are going to have the operating system, and operating system, it is going to live in this kernel. Operating system, it is going to live in a location called as kernel. So this entire message passing, nor this entire shared memory, it is part of the primary memory. It is part of the physical memory. So we talked about independent process, and when we are going to say it is independent process, process will not be affected with one another. So we call here as an independent process. Second thing, multiple processes, they are going to share resources. They are going to be dependent on one process with another process. So then you are going to say it is dependent process. Then such type of thing, so that is which process should happen first, which process should happen next, whether read should operation first, whether write should go first. In this way, the operations has to be fabricated one after the other. Then we are going to call that one as cooperating process. So such elements, we are going to call it as cooperating process. So we talked about the features. We talked about the features of this. So that is information sharing, computation speed, modularity, and convenience. So when we are going to say information sharing, obviously shared memory is there. Within that shared memory, multiple users, they are going to take up. So high speed capacity of data is going to be transmitted over a network. So that is where the speed up is going to happen. Third thing, it is going to apply either a top-down approach, nor it is going to apply a bottom-up approach. So when it is applying with top-down approach, nor it is supporting with bottom-up approach, then it is going to use the concept of modularity. So convenience, so it can use any type of protocols to share the content, and the convenience was, so if the user is going to have a common access, so that common access, it gives an instruction. So somebody was using, you have to wait. So in this way, it is supported with mutual exclusion, synchronization concepts so that this convenience can be reached. So how is this shared memory concept implemented? So the next question was, how is this shared memory implemented? So in this shared memory implementation, we are going to have a paradigm, and this paradigm is going to take up a problem called as producer, nor it is going to be called it as consumer. So if data is going to be given into the program, or some external data is there, that external data is going to be given to the program, then we are going to call it as a producing problem. Next one, the data is produced, that it has to be dumped to some other location. The data is produced, that it has to be dumped to some other location. Then we are going to call it as consuming. Got it? So I will just give an example. I have some content in my pen drive. Now I put this pen drive to the USB port in my laptop folder, and I am going to copy. I'm going to say copy, and I am putting it on my desktop, and then I am pasting it. So now you can see from the source to the destination, all the files will be moving, one after the other. That means the first event, when I put the pen drive, take a copy operation, what is happening internally? The content, what it has to be transferred or migrated from the pen drive, is going to be extracted by the operating system to a buffer location, to a temporary storage location. So that event, we are going to call it as producing. Fine. That event, we are going to call it as producing. So I put a pen drive to the laptop, then I'm going to say copy file, and then I am putting it into desktop. This is the agenda. Now the taking the file, selecting the file, copying the file, up to then what is happening, whatever file that is in the pen drive is now brought to the operating system, and operating system is temporarily giving a temporary storage, and that temporary storage is called as a buffer. Now that buffer is going to hold the file. Now I'm going to say paste it on my desktop. What is happening? The content what was extracted from the external source, that it is going to dump it to the location. That means taking up the data, you are going to call it as producing. Giving up the data to some location, we are going to call that one as consuming. So how is this paradigm implemented? There are two ways of implementing this paradigms. So first one, we are going to call it as unbounded buffer. Second one, we are going to call it as bounded buffer. First one, we call it as unbounded buffer, and second one, we call it as bounded buffer. So when we are going to call it as a bounded buffer, what is happening is, assume the buffer size is 64 MB. Assume the buffer size is 64 MB. So at a time, 64 MB with data will be taken up for producing, and it will be dumped for consuming. At a time, 64 MB of data will be taken up for producing, and it is going to be dumped up for consuming. So the space is going to be predefined. The phrase is going to be predefined. So the determination value you are going to call here as fixed buffer size. That determination value you are going to call it as fixed buffer size. So that is called as 64 MB. Next one, we are going to call it as unbounded buffer. Unbounded buffer. So you can observe this line. There is no limit for it. That means there is no limit for it. That means if my RAM size is 4 GB, yes, 4 GB at a time data can be picked up. If my RAM size is 12 GB, at a time 12 GB of data can be picked up. In this way, the temporary storage location is going to be described. Either it is fixed nor it is variable size. So how is this implemented in the shared memory? Now the next question is, how is it implemented in the shared memory? So the first thing was, we have to go for initialization. Next thing we have to write it for producing. Next thing we have to write it for consuming. So first thing we have to write it for producing. Second thing we have to write it for consuming. To do producing and to do consuming problem, first thing we have to make initialization. We have to make initialization. So how we are going to make a initialization? So share data, whatever it is there, that data we are going to initialize. So how we are going to initialize? We are going to initialize with a buffer size. We are going to initialize with a buffer size, and the maximum limit of that buffer is 10. So 10 memory locations can be taken as consumer problem and can be dumped to the 10 memory locations can be taken as producer problem. So 10 memory locations can be filled it from the input data and it can be deployed to the location where it want, that is the consumer data. So the maximum size of an array is going to be 10. Now the items what it is going to use, the variables what it is going to be used, those it is going to define in a structure, and it is going to define it in a structure, and the name of a structure it is going to give it as item, and the name of a structure it is going to give it as item. So now you are going to visualize this item. There is a structure and there is a buffer is a variable name, and the size of a buffer it is 10. That means we are going to take up the fixed locations. We are going to take up the fixed locations, and similarly we are going to have a input value that is getting the data in and extracting the data. We are going to use one for read operation, another for write operation. As C in and C out, we are going to have input file and output file, that is in and out. So when we work with the files in C operations, what is happening? Get file, set file. So getting you are going to use for an input operation equivalent to in. Then you are going to write the file. That means you are going to dump the file. That means you are going to say put operation. So as C in, C out, get in, yes, put and get, followed by scanf and printf. So in this model for IO operations, we are going to use these two variables. Fine. This is the pseudocode. This is the pseudocode for the producer problem, and that too it is bounded buffer. Why I am going to call it as bounded buffer? The buffer size what we are going to mention was 10. The buffer size what we have taken up is 10. That means the restriction is there. The limit, the scope, restriction is available, so you are going to call it as bounded buffer. Okay, now producing, that means I have input in my CSV or an Excel or a text file that I have to put it into the CPU, that I have to give it to the CPU. That means items will be produced, as simple as such. So I have some data 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. So 10 elements are there. These 10 elements I am going to move it to the CPU, and it is going to be stored in some memory location. So I have to squeeze the data. I have to get the data. So obviously that getting of information, we are going to call it as producing. That getting of information, we are going to call it as producing. So producing is an agenda for producer problem, and to do a write operation, that is the data is available, that it is going to save it into some memory location. That means you are saving it at that fixed location. So you mean to say it is consuming. Whatever data has been brought, that is processed and it is saved in some memory location. We are going to call that element as consuming. So here you can see this code: produce an item in next produced. So here I am going to have a variable. I am going to have a structure variable. You are aware that item is defined as a structure. Item is defined as a structure in the previous slide. So this one you can see type def struct item. Now here what we are mentioning, item is a structure, and a structure variable is going to have a next produce. Now you are going to use a control loop operation. That control loop operation itself, we are going to use a while loop. And as you are going to use the while loop, we have to do iterations until it is going to reach to the maximum size. Until it is going to reach to the maximum size. And what is the maximum size here is, you can see the maximum size of a buffer is 10 items. And you can see first while loop, you can see second while loop. So you are having the nested while loop structure. You are going to have the nested while loop structure. So every item is going to be produced. Every item is going to be produced, and that it is going to be dumped into the buffer. The item what it is produced, that item, it is dumped into the buffer. So you are going to hear this buffer followed by in. Buffer followed by in. So, okay, I have 10 elements in an array. Now the first element is done. What I have to do? I have to move to the second element. How can I do? I can do it with an increment operation. I is equals to I plus plus. So here in is equals to in plus 1. The maximum size of a buffer is 10. So how many times I can do an increment? I can do an increment for 10 times. That is up to the buffer size. So I'm going to give a modulo operation, and this operation has to repeat for 10 times. This operation has to be repeated for 10 times. So in this way, the producer consumer problem is going to be fabricated. So I'm going to have some data in a producer problem. That data is going to be taken up, and it is going to process with a while loop, and the maximum size is 10. One by one item is taken up. Each item is going to be dumped into the buffer, and it is going to be the buffer index, that is in, is going to be incremented one after the other. So that is regarding the producer problem. Now, what happens if we are going to take for a consumer problem? What happens if we are going to take for a consumer problem? Now, items are ready at the CPU end. Items are ready at the CPU end. Now that items are temporarily available at the buffer. That items are temporarily available at the buffer. You can see this variable here. Buffer is a variable here. So this buffer is available, and this it is going to migrate to the output operation. This buffer has to be migrated to the output operation. Whatever items are produced, those items has to be removed. That means those items has to be consumed. So we are going to have this consumer problem. We are going to have this consumer problem. So until the first item is equals to last, that means until the I value is 0, incremented to 1, incremented 2, in this way until 10 is equals to 10, until 10 is equals to 10, until all the items are going to be dumped from producer to consumer. Each has to be done. So you are going to use this. So here we are going to have buffer out. So one more variable, buffer out, and this buffer out is going to give the data to the location where it is going to be stored. So we have already defined a structure called as an item. We have already defined a structure called as an item, and in that item we are going to call it as a next consumed. So in that structure items, the data is going to be dumped with a temporary storage element. So what is the temporary storage element? The temporary storage element is buffer here. So until the maximum size 10 is going to be done, so we are going to say out is equals to out plus 1. So what is the value of out? You can see the first slide here. I am initializing out value with 0. Out value with 0. You can see here. So out value is initialized to 0. So what is happening is you are going to say 0 plus 1 until you are going to do the modulo operation. So until the last item, the 10th item is taken up, until that the data is going to be taken up from the producer side and given to the consumer side. So this is all regarding the producer consumer problem. At an outlook, producer will produce items, consumer will consume the items. What is item? Item is nothing but the data. What is data? It is made up of some variables. It can be integer, it can be float, it can be character. So those data is available in a file. Those data is available in external storage, that it has to be moved from one location to another location. That means data is in my pen drive. Data has to be copied to my E drive. So data, the location where the source is there, we are going to call it as producer. The location where you are going to deploy the data, you are going to call it as consumer. So one by one item data has to be moved from one location to another location. How is it moved? It is moved internally with an operating system when it is doing with a problem called as producer consumer problem. That is it. So now coming to this interprocess communication, we had a interprocess communication with the two types we were mentioning. One we call it as message passing or message sharing. Second one we are going to mention it as shared memory. So in shared memory, we just picked up producer is going to produce, consumer is going to produce. What is the shared memory concept here? Yeah, this is a technical question you can observe. Buffer is there. Here you can see buffer is there. So buffer is in consumer. Now look here, buffer is there again here. Buffer is again here, and this buffer is going to be in producer. So you can see the previous diagram. This is the previous diagram what I want to highlight now. So this is the diagram we should focus. Process A puts the data into shared memory. What is the process A putting the data into shared memory? It is nothing but the buffer. It is nothing but the buffer. So it is using in and out as an index, dumping the data into the buffer, and that buffer is given accommodation in shared memory. The same buffer, it is going to be used by process B. So what is shared memory here? The buffer variable, the public variable buffer, what we have mentioned, that it is going to be the shared memory content, which can be used by multiple processors. So we talked about producer, we talked about consumer, then we talked about IPC. Fine. We talked about shared memory. Now we are going to say message passing. So we are going to say message passing. So it is mechanism for process to communicate, to synchronize their events. And second thing was process communicate with each other without restoring to shared variables. So how is these two functionalities available? These two functionalities are going to be available with one we call it as shared and another we are going to call it as receive. So message passing, the message queue is going to be with two primitives. One we are going to call it as send message and another we are going to call it as receive message. So process they are going to communicate with two protocols. One we are going to call it as send message and another we are going to call it as receive message. So the best example, the email. Okay, when I type the email, you will not able to see what I am typing. When I put send button, when I hit on send button in my email, after I send my email, then only you are receiving the email. So it is opening. So once the data you are open, I can't edit that email, right? So that means one operation is going to be fulfilled and it is completed with a send message. Another operation is opened and that another operation is going to be worked, and working in sense it is going to receive that message. Got it? So the first example is the Google Drive. If you can feel that drive is going to be shared by multiple people, multiple at a time. So that is an example for shared memory. Second example, Google Gmail. Okay, so Gmail, I send a mail and I'm going to hit the send button. After I send, then only you will going to receive the email. That means the email what I am going to write, you are not able in a position to see what it is there. That means message passing is having latent confidentiality. That is one process after it completes, then only the other process is going to do. But if the shared sheet is given, if the shared Google sheet is given, so what data is there? The same data other people also can do. You and me or another girl at a time, they can use the shared variables, they can use the shared messages at the same time. So that is an example for shared memory. Message passing, the example is Gmail, the general Gmail. So we are going to send a message. After sending the message only you are able to see that message. So that is the primary distinction between first and second. But remember, either the message passing nor the shared memory, both of them we are going to say it is called as inter-process communication, IPC, inter-process communication. Okay, so how is this message passing done? So there are little questions. How is this message passing done? So it is going to establish a communication link between one another. Fine. So both of them should have a high speed internet connectivity, a communication link, a platform where people can exchange the data. It is possible with the network layer and the data link layer. So at the location where we are, it is going to be the physical layer. So we need physical layer, we need data link layer, we need network layer, we need transport layer, we need session layer, presentation layer, and application layer. So you have done it in computer networks. So the PDNTSPA, the Open System Interconnection Model, so that it is going to be a part of this communication link. So whatever links we are posting and we are going to get, how is it possible? It is possible only with a link is generated if there is two parties, one source party and destination party, they are able to exchange the message. And how are they exchanging the message? They are exchanging the message with physical layer, data link layer, network layer, transport layer, session layer, presentation layer, and application layer. So via that only people are going to send and receive the messages with send operation and receive operation. So how are links established? Links are established with networking. So can a link be associated with more than two processes? No, as it is a message passing. So you can see that there will be one source and one other destination. Next, how many links can be there? Again, it is between two parties. One is the source party and it is the destination party. What is the capacity of a link? The capacity of a link, it can be fixed size, nor it can be a variable size. The same answer for the other. It can be a fixed size, nor it can be a variable size. So is the link unidirectional or bidirectional? So link is again, it is a unidirectional. So you get the data, then you are going to bounce back the data. So it is again a unidirectional way. So that is all regarding the message passing. So what does message passing link has? One, we are going to say it needs shared memory. Second thing, it needs the bus structure, the token ring, the token bus. Third thing, it needs the computer network, that is TCP protocol or a OSI protocol. So TCP IP protocol. So these are all the requirements to establish a network, and whether it is direct or indirect. So both of them, it is going to be feasible. Second thing, it is going to support whether it is a synchronous communication or it is an asynchronous communication. If there is start bit and stop bit, then we are going to call it as synchronous. In between, there are no other supporting bits. So right from the beginning of a transaction to the end of a transaction, there is no more bifurcations, there are no more divisions of data transmission. We are going to call it as synchronous communication. When we are going to say it is an asynchronous, the difference is packet size is there, packet is going to be protected, and once the packet is going to be protected, it is having some parity bit, even parity or odd parity, and every packet is having a fixed size, so it is not variable. So one packet after another, another packet after another, data is going to be transmitted. So we call that one as asynchronous communication. In asynchronous communication, source party and destination party need not be working at the same device at a time. But in synchronous communication, both source and destination, they have to be unified. They are going to work on a same protocol. So there won't be any start bits, there won't be any stop bit. Between start and stop, the entire message is going to be manipulated. Then we are going to call that one as synchronous communication. So when we are going to call it as synchronous communication, there are things what we are going to look. One, it is going to be the physical, that is shared memory, the hardware bus, and the computer network with TCP IP protocols or open system interconnection OSI model protocols, followed by either the direct links or an indirect link, followed by start bits and stop bit. If there is start and stop, and in between data is there, we call it as synchronous. Every packet is bifurcated with some variable, with some fixed size. So every packet is having a protection mechanism with even parity, nor it is having a protection mechanism with odd parity. Then we are going to call it as asynchronous. So buffering we discussed. So explicit buffering and automatic buffering. So when it is variable buffering, when it is going to be a variable buffering, then we are going to have an automatic, that is buffer size may increase, buffer size may decrease. When it is explicit, we are going to give a fixed size to it. We are going to give a fixed size to it. So when it is fixed size, obviously the buffer it is going to be explicitly defined by the programmer. Okay. After inter-process communication, we will be having RPC, that is remote procedure calls. So before I do this remote procedure calls, I will have a just quick brush up of the content what we discussed today, and we will conclude. So tomorrow we will start this inter-process communication. So for today, we have begin with IPC. One, we call it as inter-process communication. So inter-process communication, process is dependent on another process. We call it as cooperating process. Process is not dependent on another process. We are going to call it as independent process. So we have two types of IPCs. One we call it as shared memory. Another we call it as message passing. So in this first diagram, A diagram, you can see that process A and process B, they are going to use message queues. They are going to process one after the other. And second diagram, you can see there is a shared memory. In the shared memory, process A puts the data, process B gets the data from that shared memory. So process A is putting some buffer of data there, and that buffer of data is going to be taken by process B. Then you are going to call it as shared memory. The best example for message passing, you can say it is a socket programming, or you can say it is just a email communication. And if the best processing for a shared memory, it can be a Google Drive. So multiple users, they can use at the same time. Whoever data is there, that can be visible to all. So that is where the shared data is going to take place. So we talked about independent, we talked about cooperating process. And the thing which it is going to fall in this cooperating process is called as a producer consumer problem. So producer will produce an items, consumer will consume an item. So to produce an item or to consume an item, we need to have some buffer. We need to have an intermediate space. It made up of registers in the primary memory or in the cache or with the registers. So that he is having automatic size, then it is called as unbounded or a variable size. If it is having fixed size, then it is called as bounded, nor it is going to be declared with the program. So you call it as explicit. So to do this bounded buffer problem, we are going to have initialization. The initialization of shared data has to be take place. That it is going to be done with buffer size. A structure is defined. The index values, int in and int out. So those two acts as a array index values, and the name of an array, you can assume it is buffer, and the maximum size of an array is buffer size, which is given as 10. Then we talked about producer problem. So items are going to be produced until the buffer item is produced. One by one item is going to be added in the temporary storage location, and that temporary storage location, we have given it as buffer. So buffer is a temporary storage location. So one item dumped, second item dumped. So one by one data has to be incremented. So we are going to use a control structure called as while loop, and that too we are going to use the nested while loop. Okay. Producer has produced the item. Now it is up to the consumer to consume the item. So to consume the item, it is needing the shared memory. The shared memory is nothing but the buffer which is there, and buffer now it is at 10. Now buffer one by one item has to be taken to the next variable. So obviously we are going to use the out operation, getting it into the location where it has to be consumed. So where it has to be consumed, it has to be consumed in a structure. And what is the name of a structure? The name of a structure is next consumed. So at that location, all the 10 items has to be dumped there. So for that we are going to use next consumed. So that is what we talked about interprocess communication, the shared memory. When it is message passing, it uses two primitives. One it is called as read operation, and another it is called as write operation. So that is what we talked today. So for today, we will conclude the class. So
Ramchandra sir, 1 minute, sir. I have an announcement. Hello,
sir.
Ramchandra sir.
Yes, sir.
Please wait. Yeah. I have an announcement. Good morning to all the students. Please wait for a few minutes.